Well, today, on today's ride, I think we'd go for a little ride around Merthyr Mawr and Ogmore, one of my favourite routes. The weather's gloomy, but what I really wanted to talk about today is bike shops, because up to now my experience hasn't been that good. But reading positive reviews about the shops that I'm complaining about got me thinking, maybe the problem is me. Maybe I expect too much. Or maybe the problem is we've just become very used to bad service. Now, I grew up in South Africa. Customer service is at a different level. And since living back in Britain, I have come to a conclusion that in retail, particularly in Britain, most of the staff actually feel they're doing you a favour by selling you something. They certainly give you that impression. I'll decide whether I want to sell you something or not. Who are you to come in here and demand to buy something? I accept that when you're dealing with a washing machine or something of that nature, the salesman is probably not paid particularly well, and his heart may not be in it, and he may not see you again for 10 years, so it's kind of a different situation. But when it comes to bikes, sporting equipment, this is ongoing business for years and years to come. I want to build a relationship with a bike shop, trust, where I just go there and buy what I need without looking elsewhere, because we've built up the trust. In South Africa, I rode Triumph motorcycles, always rode Triumph. Had 5 of them, all bought from the same shop. And that's the shop that I used for maintenance, for tyres, clothing, accessories, because the shop made you feel like you were part of the family. People used to come, customers, on a Saturday morning just to socialise. So that, possibly naively, is what I was hoping for from a bike shop. When I came back to cycling, so much had changed. Different types and styles of bike, frame sizing has changed, so much. Very confusing. But that's okay. I'll go to a shop. I mean, after all, who would buy a bike online? It's safe to say that Bridgend is not particularly well served with bike shops. My first bike I bought off Facebook Marketplace. It was a Cube Hide Pro. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get back into cycling. Didn't even know if I could still do it. But it turns out it's like riding a bike. I think that shows the importance of riding your own pace. That little effort of trying to keep up with the faster guys has burnt me out a little bit. Sometimes you forget you're a 58-year-old fat bloke who's only been riding for 6 or 7 months. So back to the bikes. The Cube was in fact quite a good bike, just not really suitable for the sort of cycling I wanted to do. Once I'd ridden it for a few months, realised that I was probably going to go further than I had thought, and so on, I decided to buy a new bike. I quite like the idea of a gravel bike. I also quite like going fast. So I wasn't sure if a road bike would be the answer. Relive my youth. I'd also been enjoying riding the Cube, and I wondered if a flat bar bike would be the answer. But taking a fancy to a giant fast road, I found that there is a giant dealer local to me. So I went there. I walked in and was talking to a friend. It seemed a bit of an inconvenience that I was there. And then when he finally did get around to speaking to me, I said that I was looking for some helpful advice. He rolled his eyes, tipped his head back, and went, "Oh God, another one who wants advice. I'm not here to give advice, I sell bikes." And I thought, yes, if we don't know what bike we want to buy, we ain't going to buy it from you, are we? He then proceeded to tell me that gravel bikes don't actually exist. And that a flat bar bike was a waste of money, and I should be buying a mountain bike. But again, all with a very offhand attitude. So that put me off. No desire to go back there at all. So I went to Treads. I don't like the chain store idea, but they've got a lot of bikes. They'll be able to point me in the right direction, I'm sure. Well, I walked around the shop. I pulled bikes out the rack, sat on them, looked to choose, all kinds of things. And in the half an hour I was in the shop, nobody spoke to me. Not one person. So that wasn't a great success. And the same thing happened at Evans in Cardiff. In fact, in all the 15-20 minutes I was standing around, there was somebody at the till waiting to pay for something, and they couldn't get any service, and they were quite literally waiting to pay money and buy something. Then I went to my local Trek, well I say local, 10 miles away, my Trek dealer, and he was very helpful, very encouraging. I thought, this is the shop I can do business with. And he did try his best. But unfortunately, due to the bike shortage, he couldn't help me. We couldn't find what I wanted. And I ended up buying my Trek from a shop in Cardiff. But even then, as a salesman, if I'd been the other Trek dealer, I would have phoned back after 2 weeks and said, did you find anything? Is there anything else we can help you with? Keep us in mind when you buy your next bike. Things like that. Morning. But no, it's a simple case of, if you're not buying from me today, then I don't want to know you. And the shop that I did eventually buy from, they were okay. Kept the bike for 6 weeks while we waited for the cycle scheme to come through. But when I went to collect it, they were just kind of, well, there's the bike, off you go. So I went back for the free checkup after 6 weeks or so. Asked them if I could wait because I was coming from a long way away. And they said they could do it in half an hour. So that was that sorted. But when I got there, he said, give me a number, I'll give you a ring when it's ready. And I said, I'm going to wait for it. And he said, yeah, there's a coffee shop down the road. And basically saying, I don't want you in my shop. I found a shop who were really helpful, very friendly, and I thought, this is the place I'll get my next bike from. and I bought my clipless pedals and shoes from them. However, the pedals, it turned out, were the cause of the terrible clonking noise. So I took them back. And the bloke in the shop said, "Oh, so you'll need new pedals." Went and got some off the shelf and said, 50 quid please. And I said, "Well, what about these ones?" He said, "Well, pedals, it's a wearable part." I said, "Yes, but they're only 3 months old." He went to speak to somebody else. He came back and reluctantly said, "Oh, all right, we'll look at them." A couple of days later, they sent me a message to tell me the pedals were ready to collect. The noise, he said, it was because the bearings were very dry, but he'd sorted it all out. I said, "Thank you very much, that's all I really wanted in the first place." And then he said, "That will be £10 please." And I said, "You're not seriously going to charge me, are you?" And he kind of looked at me, wasn't sure what to do. And again, he went to speak to this anonymous person in the back. Eventually, he came back and said, "All right, I won't charge you." And he thought he was doing me a favour. But you know, the trust had already broken down. Do British customers like being treated badly? Do British businesses not want to keep their customers? I don't know. But certainly when I was in sales, I definitely did work very hard to keep my customers happy and to keep them as customers and try and win them back if they went somewhere else. And as I said, maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's just not the British way.